Terrifying lives of young female slaves in ancient Rome. Picture this. You're a young girl, maybe 14 or 15, standing in a dusty, crowded market square. The sun beats down, chains bite into your wrists, and the air smells of sweat and fear. Strangers are shouting prices for you. You're not a person anymore. You're property. This was a reality for countless young women in ancient Rome, ripped from their homes, sold into slavery, and thrown into a world so brutal, so terrifying, it's hard to imagine surviving it. What was life really like for these girls? How did they endure? And what dark secrets did the Roman Empire hide behind its grand marble columns? Stick with me, because we're about to uncover a story that's equal parts heartbreaking and shocking, a story most history books gloss over. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join us as we dive into the wild, often untold stories of the past. Today, we're stepping into the shadows of ancient Rome to explore the terrifying lives of young female slaves. This isn't just history. It's a human story, one that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the Roman Empire. Let's get started. Imagine you're a girl in 100 BCE. Maybe you were born in a far-off village in Gaul, or maybe you were captured during a Roman conquest in Egypt or Greece. One day, your life is normal, helping your family, dreaming of the future. The next, soldiers storm in, and everything's gone. You're dragged away, shipped across seas, and sold at a Roman slave market. The crowd jeers, a wealthy man in a toga buys you for a handful of coins, and just like that, your life isn't yours anymore. Sounds like a nightmare, right? But for thousands of young women, this was their reality. Now, let's pause for a second. Think about this. What would it feel like to lose everything? Your family, your freedom, your identity, in a single moment? It's chilling. And we're just getting started. These girls, some as young as 10 or 12, face a world where they had no rights, no voice, and no escape. But what exactly did their lives look like? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about where these girls ended up. If you were a young female slave in ancient Rome, your fate depended on who bought you. Some were sent to massive villas, working for Rome's elite. Others ended up in cramped urban households or even brothels. Yes, brothels. We'll get to that in a minute. But trust me, it's as dark as it sounds. The luckiest, if you can even call them that, worked as domestic slaves. You'd be cleaning, cooking, or serving food to your master's family. Sounds simple, right? Not so fast. Picture a sprawling Roman villa, all marble floors and golden mosaics. It looks glamorous, but for a young slave girl, it was a prison. You're up before dawn, scrubbing floors until your hands bleed. You're carrying heavy jugs of water, dodging the temper of your mistress, who might slap you for spilling a drop. And the master of the house? He could be kind or he could be cruel. Either way, you're at his mercy. One wrong move, and you're whipped, starved, or worse. The Romans didn't mess around when it came to discipline. Historical records tell us slaves were often beaten with leather straps or even branded with hot irons as punishment. Branded. Like cattle. Can you imagine the fear these girls lived with every single day? But it wasn't just a physical pain. The emotional toll was crushing. Many of these girls were torn from their families, never to see them again. They were given Roman names, stripped of their culture, and forced to blend into a world that saw them as less than human. One ancient text, from a Roman poet named Martial, describes a slave girl named Lydia, who was so beautiful her master called her his jewel. Sounds sweet, right? Until you realize she had no choice in what he did to her. That's a reality we need to face. These girls weren't just workers. They were often seen as objects that to serve every whim of their owners. Now, let's address the darkest part of the story, and I'm warning you, it's heavy. Many young female slaves, especially those considered beautiful, were forced into prostitution. In Rome, brothels were legal, and they were everywhere. Called lupernaria, these places were grim, dark, filthy rooms where girls as young as 12 were sold to men for a few coins. The word luperna comes from lupa, meaning she-wolf, because Romans thought the women there were wild and untamed. But these girls weren't wild. They were trapped. Imagine being that girl, locked in a tiny cell, knowing what's coming every night. It's heartbreaking, and it's a part of Rome's history we can't ignore. Here's a chilling detail. Some brothels had signs outside advertising the girls' names and prices. Archaeologists in Pompeii found these signs preserved in ash, with names like Eutychis and Fortunata scratched into the walls. These were real girls, with dreams and fears, reduced to a price tag. And if they didn't meet their quotas, they'd face beatings or worse. Yet, the Romans saw this as normal. To them, a slave's suffering didn't matter. How does that sit with you? Knowing that an entire society built its wealth on the backs of people it refused to see as human? But not every young female slave ended up in a brothel. Some worked in fields, grinding grain or harvesting crops under the scorching sun. Others were sent to dangerous jobs, like weaving or dyeing cloth in toxic workshops. These girls inhaled fumes that could kill them over time, all while working 12 or 14-hour days. And here's a twist. Some slaves were trained as entertainers, singers, dancers, or even gladiators. Yes, female gladiators existed. They were rare, but texts from the time, like those by the historian Tacitus, mention women fighting in arenas for the crowd's amusement. Imagine being forced to fight for your life, knowing the crowd was cheering for blood. It's the stuff of nightmares. Now, let's talk about survival. How did these girls cope? Some found small ways to resist. They'd whisper their real names to each other, keeping their identities alive in secret. Others formed bonds with fellow slaves, creating a sense of family in a world that tried to strip it away. There's even evidence of slaves scratching messages into walls, little act of defiance, like, "I am still here." In Pompeii, archaeologists found graffiti from a slave girl named Mola, who wrote, "Mola loves Chryses." Was it a friend? A lover? We'll never know, but it shows these girls clung to hope, to love, even in the darkest moments. But here's a question for you. Could you hold on to hope in a life like that? Day after day, knowing you're not free, knowing your body, your time, your very existence belongs to someone else? It's hard to fathom, but some girls did more than survive. They found ways to outsmart the system. A few were so skilled or clever that they earned their freedom. In Rome, slaves could sometimes buy their way out or be freed by a kind master. These freed women, called liberty, could start businesses or even marry. But freedom came at a cost. Many carried the scars, physical and emotional, for life. Let's zoom out for a second. The Roman Empire was built on slavery. At its peak, nearly a third of Rome's population was slaves. That's millions of people, many of them young women, living lives of fear and pain. Yet, when we think of Rome, we picture gladiators, emperors, and grand temples. We don't think of the girls scrubbing floors or crying themselves to sleep in a brothel. Why is that? Maybe because history is written by the victors, and the victors didn't care about the slave stories. But their stories matter. They remind us that behind every empire, there's a human cost. So, what's the takeaway here? The lives of young female slaves in ancient Rome were terrifying. Yes, but they were also a testament to resilience. These girls faced unimaginable horrors, yet many found ways to survive, to resist, to hold on to their humanity. Their stories aren't just a footnote in history, they're a wake-up call. They force us to ask, what injustices are we overlooking today? What stories aren't we hearing? Before I wrap up, let me leave you with this. Next time you hear about the glory of ancient Rome, picture that girl in the market, chains on her wrists, eyes full of fear but also defiance. She was real. Her pain was real. And her strength? That was real too. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let me know in the comments, what part of this shocked you the most? For more stories that uncover the hidden side of history, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.